Good day, everyone, and welcome to the 2017 National Adoption Month webinar. Please note that this call is being recorded. If you object to being recorded, please disconnect now. Everyone will be on mute for the duration of the webinar. You can ask a question using the questions feature in the Go to Webinar control panel at the top right corner of your screen. Feel free to ask a question at any time during the webinar. Questions for the panelists will be collected and shared during the Q&A session at the end. We will now begin the webinar with Kelly Cantor. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Kelly Cantor. I'm a Child Welfare Program Manager with Child Welfare Information Gateway. And I just want to thank you for taking an hour out of your busy day to join us. We're really excited about today's webinar. I wanted to just quickly go over our agenda, as I'll be acting as your moderator for today's webinar. We're going to start with June Dorn from the Children's Bureau. She's going to give us a welcome and provide us an overview about this year's National Adoption Month theme. Next, we will be discussing 4 key questions with the 3 panelists that we've brought to share their experiences and perspective with you. There's 2 teens who have been adopted from foster care, as well as an adoptive parent who has 2 teen daughters that she's adopted. And they'll be able to share more about their, provide more of an introduction about themselves. But I'm really excited for you to hear from them. After our panelist discussion, we'll be talking about some of the resources that are available on this year's, for this year's National Adoption Month initiative. And then we'll save time at the end for questions from our audience. So feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar. You'll see a chat feature. We'll be screening those questions and we'll get to them at the end.
The agenda for the webinar includes welcome and overview, introduce the panelists, discussion, how can we prepare and support families to adopt teens, tips for professionals, resources for National Adoption Month 2017, and audience questions and answers.
Okay, so with that, we will turn it over to June Dorn.
June Dorn, National Adoption Specialist for the Children's Bureau.
Thank you, Kelly, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome from the Children's Bureau. We want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to join us today for this webinar in preparation for 2017 National Adoption Month. Our theme this year continues to emphasize the need for adoptive parents equipped to meet the needs of older teens in foster care. Teens have lower adoption rates than younger children, and they often wait longer to be adopted. 43% of the children that are photo listed on Adopt US Kids are teens between the ages of 15 to 18 years. So our theme this year is titled, Teens Need Families, No Matter What. Identifying no matter what families for teens in foster care remains an urgent need, and equipping child welfare professionals to prepare and support families to meet this need is the focus of this webinar. The no matter what families implies the unconditional caring and support that families are intended to provide to all of us and throughout our lives. I trust that the messages relayed today by all of our panelists will add meaning to your work that you do in supporting and preparing adoptive families. And now I would like to introduce Keontae Crenshaw, our first panelist. Keontae?
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Keontae, do you want to provide your introduction, Keontae?
Oh, yes. Okay. My name is Keontae Crenshaw. I was adopted at 13 years old. I am currently 19 years old now. I just recently started college at the community college in Danville, Illinois. I just recently got my first job at the Boys and Girls Club in Danville, Illinois. I just bought my first car. I'm happy. I like to be funny. I like to play basketball. I'm very athletic. Um, I do very good impressions of Denzel Washington, and I'm a lot of fun, and I'm loving and caring for each and everybody. That's all.
Thanks, Keontae. Do you want to do a Denzel Washington quick impression for us?
I don't know. He's on break right now.
All right. Thanks, Keontae.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Diamond, how about you? Can you provide a brief introduction for our audience?
Hi everyone, I'm Diamond Joggler. I was adopted at 14. I am 16 right now. I am still in high school, my junior year. I live in Riverview, Florida. I play basketball and I play volleyball. And I love to sing. That's what I do. Last year, I went to audition for America's Got Talent when it came to Jacksonville, and I'm probably going to audition this year again just to see, to try it out. But yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. Well, thank you both again for being a part of this webinar and taking time to share some of your experiences and perspective with us. For the audience, we have our panelists' bios included as an attachment in the right corner of your GoToWebinar screen under handouts. So you can read a little bit more about them there. So we prepared 4 questions for our panelists that we felt would be important for professionals to consider as they work to prepare and support parents to adopt teens in foster care. So let's dive in. You'll see the questions, each of the questions on your screen. The first one is, what advice would you have for prospective adoptive parents of teenagers? So either someone who is considering adopting or someone who is preparing to adopt a teen. Keontae, do you want to go first?
Yes, ma'am.
Go right ahead.
Okay. The advice I give to a teenage parent, I would say at least try to get to know the teen and, talk to them and get where they're coming from, get where their background, where they came from, and try to figure out what affected them when they were younger and try to figure out where they come from and stuff like that.
Great. Do you have any example of how families can make teens feel like they're part of the family?
By going out, doing stuff with them, like say like you want to go have a trip go to the bowling alley or something like that, or at least go to a park and walk with them, to talk to them and get to know, where they're coming from.
And I know that if you want to share a little bit about when you first moved into the Crenshaw's home, what that was like for you. Are there any specific examples from that you want to share?
Well, when I first came to the Crenshaws, I was actually doing a respite. I was actually just coming to stay with the Crenshaws for a few days, and then after a while, I just experienced the love, and I had a lot of brothers. That's something I never experienced before. There's a lot of boys in my family. I was mainly always around girls, so it just was a blessing to be around a group of guys that my brothers took me to do stuff, go out and play, and have fun. I just experienced a lot of fun and love here. So, and when it was time to go home, like when they was taking me back to my original foster home, I didn't want to go back. I started crying. So, yeah, they just meant a lot.
That's awesome. Thanks, Keontae. Is there any other advice you'd give to prospective adoptive parents of teens?
Yes, I would say teens need someone to talk to and someone to nurture them. Like, all teens are not, they're different. Every teen is different. Every teen got their own, unique way. And, you got to know that nobody's perfect.
Yeah, that's great, Keontae. Thanks. I know you had mentioned to me earlier just how it's great to adopt a teen because you can talk to them. And just like you said, with babies, you can't ask them what's wrong or what they want for dinner, but that's such a cool thing about having a teen in your home because you can talk to them. So thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
Simon, what about you? What advice would you have for prospective adoptive parents of a teenager?
I would tell an adult that is thinking about adopting a teen that they will need to be very patient and very understanding. As for me, I needed a lot of time to get comfortable and to just go in and be comfortable and be okay with everything that was going on. Um, like a lot of teens have grown so much on their own and they taught themselves so much because teens in foster care really, depending on their situation, didn't have parents to raise them and things like that. So certain things like calling their adoptive parents, mom and dad, that's something that will take time and it's not anything that you can rush into. And for an example, personally with me, when I got adopted, my adoptive parents, my parents now, they threw me a huge adoption party, and I had friends and family over and things like that. And it was very thoughtful, but they didn't ask me how I felt about it and if I was going to be comfortable with all that because I wasn't. I was very emotional that day, and I just needed time alone to think about everything that just went on because I just got adopted. I'm gonna have a whole new family, whole new parents, a whole new home, and it was just very scary for me. I was excited about my future and all the things that I was gonna be able to do and things like that. But at the same time, I was afraid that things wouldn't work out and things like that. So everyone coming over and throwing this big party was just so overwhelming for me, and I really just wanted to go home and just sit in my room and just think about everything that just went on. So yeah.
That's a great example, Diamond. Thank you so much. It kind of reminds me of, what Kante said, or going back to what Kante said about, remembering to talk to teens and asking them, what they want and what they prefer. So I appreciate you providing that example from your own life of why that's
Thank
so
you.
important. Yeah, thanks. So let's move to the second question. If you both can think back to when you first moved in with your family and how that felt, what do you think teens in foster care would want adoptive parents to know about them? Yancy, do you want to go first again?
Yes, I can. I would like to say that adoptive parents need to know that the teens really want to experience a lot of love and a lot of teens. I'm a teen myself. So, for example, when I came into the Crenshaw home, I always wanted to go have fun and go with my brothers places, like say to the movies or something like that. Maybe it's a trip to the movies or maybe go to the park, play basketball or something like that. That's something I always did with my brothers. So parents can look into a lot of good activities or a lot of fun activities, and just the fact of being in an environment of love and having a lot of fun. That's what really ties into that. And another thing I would like to say is that teens want to know and get to know the parents. They don't want to just come into a home, and not expecting what they're going up against or what the parent has for them or the rules in the home.
You mentioned in some of our conversations about teens not wanting to be attached to a label. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, that part, I was actually going over that all day, but that part, what it meant to me is, the reason I came up with that is because you know how, stores have labels on everything like food products and stuff like that. and they're shipped to different places. And a teenager, we shouldn't be, a label on that page. We shouldn't be getting shipped to different stores or different homes. I just think that we need to pick a label and just stay there, stay in one store, and not be shipped along everywhere.
Thanks, Keontae.
You're welcome.
Diamond, what about you? What do you think teens in foster care want adoptive parents to know about them?
I think teens might want their adoptive parents to know that they might push their adoptive parents away a little bit because of everything they've gone through. They're afraid of getting attached and not being wanted. I think they just need to understand that the teens need some time to adjust. I think the teens just want their adoptive parents to see things through their perspective and things like that. Yeah, like when I was first moving into my adoptive home, I was like really nervous, and I kind of just stayed back in my room, and I was crying a lot because I was so afraid, not because I thought I was making the wrong decision, but because I was so afraid of like loving them and caring about them and me not getting the same love and not being cared for just as much as I care for them. So I feel like teens want their adoptive parents to look at things in their perspective and see how it makes it how the teen is feeling and not so much how the parent is feeling, because it is a very scary situation for the teen.
That's a really good point. Is there something that you would recommend parents do that first week, or a way that you think that process can go easily, so a teen knows that they're loved and that they belong?
I think they should really talk to the teens and things like, and make them feel at home, but not like too overbearing or too overwhelming, because at the same time, I really just wanted a little space. But I feel it's different for everyone. Every teen is totally different. So how I dealt with it, I just really needed my time by myself to process, and I think that really helped me. That my parents weren't so like overbearing and just kind of giving me my space, because they understood that I was feeling a lot of emotions and I was going through a lot.
Thank you so much, Diamond. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So our next question is similar, but a little different. What do you think is the most important thing for adoptive parents to know before adopting a teen? And we'll just switch it up. Diamond, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, sure, I would go. Yeah. I think it's important for an adoptive parent to learn about the teen's past and everything that they've been through. It will help the parents understand more when the teen like reacts to certain things. For example, what I've been through and things like that. If someone was to like, if my parents were like to say something wrong to me or anything like that, I would have like a flashback, and it would just set me back to when I was with my aunt that I was taken away from, and I would shut down because it was kind of like bringing me back to that moment. And I feel like if my parents, they were very understanding and they knew about my past and things like that, and I think that's why it helped them a lot to understand why I would act a certain way when something happened. Because like a lot of these teens, like they've been through so much, and if you don't understand if you don't know what they've been through and understand that they aren't going to be perfect all the time, we aren't going to be perfect all the time. Teens, we can't, like no one's perfect. So I feel like just the parents knowing what they've been through and understanding what they've been through and just again, looking at it from the teen's perspective, that would help a lot.
That's great, Simon. Thank you. What about you, Kante? What do you think is most important for adoptive parents to learn about or know before adopting a teen?
Well, what I got out of my mom and them, Mrs. Crenshaw, is that adoptive teens is going to be a lot of hard work, and you're going to need a lot of patience for the teen, because every teen is not perfect. We all come from different backgrounds and different environments, so you really don't know what the teen been through in their life. So you might need to get to that mode with them. Like I said before, talk to them, take them to the park or something, get to know them better, so you can see where they're coming from. And yeah, and again, patience is the key, because a lot of teens don't have that, not at that place where they're ready for, because they got some teams not ready. Some teams are harder than others, and some teams are not ready for, coming into another home, because they just got taken from the biological home, so they're not ready to, adjust like that quickly. So you got to have a lot of time and give them time to adjust into the home that they just got brought into.
That's a great point, Kante. And I know that you've talked a lot about how your parents would take you out on family trips and how helpful that was in, kind of being able to get to know all of you and being able to find things that you like to do together, and that was really helpful for you.
Yes.
All right, well, that brings us to our last question. What kind of preparation would help adoptive parents be the most successful? Simon, let's start with you.
Okay, I think this is pretty much the hardest question here, because I don't think there's really much preparing you could do, because every teen is so different, and we can be kind of difficult sometimes. So, but I think an adoptive parent should be very open to the teen's opinion and what they would like and want to do. Yeah, but I think everyone, I honestly don't know what to say about preparation for adopting a teen or anything like that, because you don't really know what you are getting into. But I think we're all different, and it's very different adopting a teen than adopting a kid, because I chose my parents and they chose me. So I feel like our relationship was stronger because I knew I wanted to be here and I knew they wanted me. And yeah.
That's great. And I know that you also think, that even though there's some challenges with adopting teens, you've also mentioned and talked about people shouldn't be afraid to adopt teenagers. It's just different. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone should be afraid to adopt teens. There's nothing wrong with us. I feel like people are very afraid because they feel like we're damaged goods or something, and they want to raise us and things like that, because we aren't a kid, so they don't think we're not little and things like that, so they don't feel like they're raising us, but they are. There's so many things that I have taken from my parents, that I've molded more into them. They have raised me more than I've been raised my entire life. They have shown me so much, and for my future and things like that. And I feel like we have so much to offer, and I don't think people notice it as much as they should.
Thanks, Diamond. I appreciate it. Kante, we have a couple We have a couple more minutes. Do you want to add anything to what kind of preparation you think adoptive parents need to be successful and supportive of teens?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to add that caseworkers, like if the adoptive teens caseworker or something like that, they need to come up with like a teen talk to where like it's a video to where teens talking so they can watch and they can see that can reduce the fears of like parents may have.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I think Diamond mentioned that in another conversation about past experiences with teens can really help. And so I think that that's an awesome idea, having an opportunity for prospective adoptive parents to see teens and get to know teens or see videos of teens. And we do have several videos, some of which are also on the Adoptive Kids website that we'll talk about, but can be a good tool to help prepare adoptive parents. So I love that idea. Thanks, Keontae and Diamond. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
I'm sure that the audience, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm sure the audience will have other questions for you both, so just stay tuned. We're going to turn it over to Stacy Dennis now, who will share a little bit about herself, and then we'll get her perspective as an adoptive parent of teenagers on some of the same questions. Stacy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Stacy Dennis, and if you're looking at the PowerPoint, you can see a picture of me and my husband Eric and our two daughters. The one on the left, if you're facing away from the picture, is Kylie. We adopted her first. She was 13 when she moved in with us, and she just recently turned 16. And our newest daughter is to my right in the picture, and her name is Angie, and she has been with us for 3 months, and she is 17 years old. We live in Norfolk, Virginia. If you don't know where that is, it's right near Virginia Beach, so we're right on the coast, and we have loved our adoption experience so far.
Oh, awesome. I'm really excited for you to share your perspective on some of those same questions, Stacy, so let's just dive in. The first question that we asked was, what advice do you have as an adoptive parent for other prospective adoptive parents of teenagers?
There's a couple things. The classes that we took some pride classes before we adopted our first daughter, Kylie. It was just me and my husband, and so we decided that we wanted to adopt a child with more significant needs. So her needs were listed as moderate to severe, and so we were trying to be as wide open and open-eyed, I guess, as we could going into this process. And so we took some pride classes. We kept our books. We read everything everybody told us to. I think, we were good students, and we did what we were supposed to. And then reality happened, and our daughter moved in. And there were things that happened. There were things that our teacher told us in the class that I remember thinking, there's no way that this would happen with like a 16-year-old. And to give you an example of that, she told us a story about two 16-year-old boys that were living in a group home. And they were just playing around outside, and they got some scrapes, nothing too terrible. They could have just washed their hands and gone. So for like a typical 16-year-old, that's that would have been it. I don't even know that they would have talked about the scratches. But she said these two 16-year-old boys were so upset about getting scratched up and having, scrapes that had blood on them that they came inside and they needed to be coddled a little bit by the group home leader, who eventually let them pick out Band-Aids of Spider-Man and Batman. And I remember thinking in the class, like, I don't know any 16-year-old that would act like that. I just can't believe it. Like, that just must have been those two kids, or maybe it was just, that particular situation. But then our daughter got in our home, and it was the very same thing. It was me going back to my pride book, like, probably every other day. Like, this is what she did. What does it say about it in my book? Can I call my teacher back and ask her? Stuff like that. So one of the things in particular that my daughter did that I thought was kind of like those 16-year-old boys was, I had a nephew at the time. He was 3, and he had those play car keys, the plastic car keys. Well, she loved those car keys, and she wanted to carry around with them for like 2 or 3 days. And I remember thinking, like, you're 13 years old, like, why do you want to start to play car keys? But she just needed to do it. She just needed to let her be a kid and play with the car keys. And after about a week, she was done with the car keys, and then she moved on. And I think if I hadn't have heard that from the teacher in the Pride class, I would have been more upset. Like, why is she playing with the car keys? Like, what's wrong with her? And like, I shouldn't be letting her do this. And we've got to talk. And oh no. So that's one of the big things I think that helped us get ready for her. So that would be my advice. Like, pay attention in class. Listen to what your teacher has to say. Listen to your social worker. They're not telling you this because, they're just, they've got a list to go through and that's a check off. It's really helpful. So reminding parents that they have resources and that they can use them. Another thing that we did, my husband and I, was because her trauma was so significant and her behaviors were so significant, we made a daily plan. It was actually twice daily. We would go to bed at night and we would review what happened during the day. And we would say, this happened, I had a hard time with this is what she said, this is how she reacted, this is what I thought, I think I'm going crazy, what are we going to do? We would review our day, go over what went well, go over what did not go well, and then we would make a plan for what was going to happen the next day. We would get up in the morning and we would say, okay, we got it. All right, you're taking her to school, I'm picking her up. I'm doing her homework for the first hour, you're doing her homework for the second hour. If I get frustrated and I can't take anymore, like, here's our code word, we got to switch off. So we had our day planned every day. And so sometimes we would have to make adjustments per night. Sometimes we have to make adjustments in the middle of the day. But that really kept our sanity in check because there were just things that no matter how much you read and how much you prepare, you just don't know. I think Diamond said this earlier, every kid is different. You just don't know what an individual is going to say or need, and you need to regroup at some point and meet their needs, meet your needs, and make sure you guys are all on the same track.
I love that example. Thank you for providing such a specific example. I think that's really helpful. So along those lines, what do you think is most important for adoptive parents to learn about or know before adopting a teen? So they're going through their classes, and what do you think are some of the key points that, now that you've been through it a couple of times, what do you think are some of the most important things for adoptive parents to know?
I think Keontae and Diamond touched on this too, but knowing that your child is coming to you with a lifetime story behind them. They might not be, 30 years old and have that life story behind them, but they have a lifetime of transition, trauma, abuse, more than what most normal people experience in their entire lifetime. So they're coming to you with that behind them. Plus, they don't want to be known as that kid who this and such happened to them. They want to be known as the person that they are and the person that they're going to become. So talking with your social worker and knowing and understanding their past, not just reading their case file and knowing the behaviors that they've done, but knowing how to cope with that, how to handle that, how to talk through that, and knowing why some children have certain behaviors because of what's in their past. And then how do you deal with those behaviors and talk through that behavior, not just in an emergency situation, but on a daily basis. Like knowing and understanding that and having support from your workers and their team and talking through that with people and understanding that as a family.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for tying that back into, I think it's great that you can tie it back into what Keontae and Diamond were saying, and you've had some of the same kind of revelation. So let's go to the next one, just so we have time to get through all of your great points. As an adoptive mom of 2 teenagers, what do you think is the most important thing for adoptive parents to No. Well, now, let me see. What do you think is the most important thing? What kind of preparation? Let's go there. What kind of preparation do you think would help adoptive parents be the most successful and supportive of their teens?
Well, I think one of the things that happened when we started this process is I did have a bit of an advantage, I think, for myself, is that I was a reporter for 20 years, so I ask a lot of questions. I research stuff and I find things out, and I will berate people with questions until I feel like I know and I understand. I would say, but most people don't have or are nervous to be that tenacious. They feel like people are going to get mad at them. They feel like they're asking too many questions. They're taking up too much time. And I felt that way. And I'm not nervous to ask that question. But, you know, I know that caseworkers have more than one kid that they're helping. I know that there's a lot of things that go on other than just this one child that I'm asking about. So I think helping potential parents and potential adoptive teens ask questions, not be afraid, welcome those things, that being assertive is okay. I think that speaking up, asking for information, presenting information on the social worker side, even helping parents and teens ask questions that maybe that they should be asking but they're not. You know, say maybe a good question to ask would be this, and then give them something, because a social worker knows 1,000 times more than what a potential adoptive parent knows. Like, I don't know what I don't know. I'm coming into this new and blind, and, you know, like I'm skipping around and jumping over rainbows, and, you know, maybe a social worker needs to help me say, okay, well, you need to think about this, and you know, you've got to lock away your medicines, and you know, I know that stuff that goes on checklists, but it's anything and everything. Think about when you're about to have a baby. The doctor goes over stuff with you. The birthing class goes over stuff with you. The hospital goes over stuff with you. Well, it's almost the same way, but now you're getting somebody who goes to school and can talk, and, you know, is coming to you with issues that, you know, the social worker is the focal point on helping that person get ready for building a new family.
I love that point. Yeah, I think that that's so important as professionals to remember that we can help to ask some of those questions. We can help parents ask the right questions. We can remind them of what some of the things are that might be important for them to know, even if they say things are okay. You know, I think that they don't know what they don't know is such an important point to make. We are running a little bit out of time. I want to get to the tip sheet, but I do want to point out that you have experience with interjurisdictional adoption, and if there's something that you want to briefly say about that, and then if the audience has additional questions that they want to ask, we can have some time at that at the end.
Sure, real quick. I adopted my first daughter from Idaho and my second daughter from Texas. So I've done 2 interjurisdictional adoptions. I live in Virginia. Both of them were very, very different. There was almost nothing the same that was for both of them, but both of them were awesome experiences. They worked beautifully both times. It just required reading through some paperwork. And, I mean, if you can do your taxes, you can do an ICPC. And it can work, and it's been an awesome thing for me, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacy. And like I said, yeah, if maybe folks will have some additional follow-up conversations or questions, at the end. So let's go to the next slide. I'd like to draw everyone's attention to one of the other attachments that's available on your screen under handouts. It's the tip sheet, Preparing Parents to Adopt Teens. And we developed this with input from multiple young people like Diamond and Keontae, as well as several adoptive parents. We wanted to just develop something that distilled all of this great information into some of the most important points, kind of into an easy handout to keep for reference. We don't have time to go over the whole thing today, but we did want to touch on 2 of the important points. And we're hoping that Stacy could help us with some personal examples about why she thinks these are important. So the first one is encourage adoptive parents to consider their parenting skills, both their strengths and their limits. And Stacy, do you have personal example about why you think that that's important that you want to share?
Yeah, I do. I touched on this a little bit with the strategy sessions between me and my husband. So there are some things that we did great. We gave our daughter a stable environment. We loved her. But there were some things that I couldn't do. I mean, there were times when our daughter was having a meltdown, and I just couldn't take it. And I would have to be able to say, like, I'm tapping out. Like, my husband's got to come in. I can't do it. Like, I'm at my wit's end. And so to be able to say what our strengths are, be able to say what our limits are, and not just to each other, but work that out with caseworkers, doctors, whoever is involved in that child's life, because ultimately everybody wants a child to succeed. And knowing those strengths, knowing your limits, and finding out how to best navigate that together as a family.
That's great. Thank you. And I know you mentioned about the importance of finding groups that have support groups and other adoptive parents of teens, and that's really helped you to kind of realize that you weren't the only one going through these same situations, similar situations, and that helped a lot. So the next bullet is help adoptive parents prepare for triggering events that may bring up hard or complex feelings for teens. Anything you'd want to share that can kind of why that's been important in your life?
Yeah, we got our daughter moved in August, and so she started school, which was a huge trigger event, and then we went straight into the holidays, October, November, December, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's, and I was so excited for these. I mean, I was thinking, okay, well, she'll probably miss her family, and we'll hug, and everything will be okay, but that's not how it was. It was days of crying, acting out, and I didn't realize until we got to Halloween just how traumatic of an experience this was for her. And it wasn't just about she missed her family. It was a lot more than that. So now going into it with my second daughter, I know not to do things like what Diamond mentioned, like plan a huge Christmas party and invite 50 people over and be like, here's my new daughter. So it's helpful. This is, I think, where workers come in so greatly that you know that this stuff happens, and you know what could possibly happen with that particular child is to help the parents ask the questions and be prepared for those types of trigger events. That it's not just, you hug each other and everything's okay, but how do you work through that? What do you talk about? How do you ask those questions? And then how do you process those feelings in moving forward as a family?
Thank you so much, Stacy. I know that we rushed through those, so I really appreciate you thinking through and sharing some. I think that's always helpful when you can put it to real-life experiences. So I'd like to take a few minutes now for us to highlight some more of the resources that are available to you all as part of this year's National Adoption Month. So on your screen, you will see the new and updated National Adoption Month homepage. It was just launched this past Friday, so please do go check it out. It's at www.childwelfare.gov/topics/adoption/NAM. Based on this year's theme, this year's site focuses on specific resources and tools to help prepare, develop, and support adoptive parents for teens in foster care. There's also podcasts created by Spalding for Children and several adoption videos that share the behind-the-scenes stories of adoption that specifically are focused on teenagers. These can be excellent tools, as we've talked about, for raising awareness or starting conversations with either prospective adoptive parents or with teenagers. Throughout the website, you'll also see topical tip boxes titled, What Can I Do Now? These are really intended for those of you, which is probably everyone, who don't have a lot of time but really want some quick suggestions on ways to improve your practice. So finally, I'd also like to highlight the outreach suggestion and sample outreach messages that we have under our Spread the Word section that can help you raise local awareness in your community about National Adoption Month and about the importance of adopting teens from foster care. Finally, I want to highlight one more time the Talking with Older Youth About Adoption tip sheet. This is something we created last year, and it is included as well as an attachment under handouts. It's really intended to serve as a guide for professionals in starting to have meaningful and effective conversations with teens about permanency options, about their future, about the possibility of adoption. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kathy Ledesma, who's the National Project Director at Adopt US Kids, who's going to share more information about resources that they have. Kathy?
Great. Thanks, Kelly. My pleasure. Welcome, everyone, again on behalf of Adopt US Kids, along with our partners at Child Welfare Information Gateway and the Children's Bureau. For those of you who don't know about Adopt US Kids, we are a project of the Children's Bureau and have operated for about 15 years. Our mission is to raise public awareness about the need for foster and adoptive families for children in the public child welfare system. We also focus on assisting states, territories, and tribes in their efforts to recruit, engage, develop, and support foster and adoptive families. On the front line, we engage with about 28,000 families per year, most of whom are inquiring about the qualifications to foster or adopt and the process, and we connect those families with their own states. We have families registered on our site who have approved home studies. Currently, we have about 2,500 families. Also, about 5,000 of the children and youth who are in foster care and waiting for an adoptive family are photo listed on the site. Over the past 15 years, more than 28,000 of the photo-listed children have been reported as adopted, and the average age of those children is 13 to 14 years old. So these are generally older youth, children who have special needs, and siblings that we want to keep together. We are a free service for public and private agencies. Registered professionals, you can call our number if you're not yet registered, 1-888-200-4005. Our staff can help you through the registration process that gives you access to more information on our website than the general public can get. We have been photo listing, as I said, for about 15 years, but over the last 2 to 3 years, we've been very much working hard on improving the services that are available to you through the website. Especially, I want to highlight the Find a Family tool. Without photo listing a child on your caseload, you can type in that child's characteristics and some search parameters, and you can see what families are out there across the country who might be a potential match for a child you're seeking to place for adoption. New this month, we've been working hard for the last 2 years on updating the child photo listing narrative guidance that was posted to our website last week. And on September 28th, we will be hosting a free webinar to talk through that guidance and let folks know what's new. And you can also call us at that toll-free number, 1-888-200-4005, for more information on how to register.
You can visit Adopt US Kids on the web at www.adoptuskids.org.
Kelly, that's it.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Appreciate it. So now we're going to go to our audience Q&A session, and we have about 10 minutes left. So we may not get a chance to go over all of the questions, but we did get some good ones that we've selected. The first one is for Diamond, and the question is, Diamond, did you have any preparation in meeting and talking with prospective adoptive families, and what did that look like? So preparing you to meet and talk with families that may adopt.
Actually, when I was first in foster care, I didn't want to get adopted. I wanted to be placed with one of my biological family members. And so I really wasn't prepped. No one prepped me to go meet adoptive, like people that are willing to adopt me and things like that. where I met my parents was at an adoption event, but I wasn't there to like meet anyone. It was a match meeting, and I wasn't there to meet anyone. I was there with my therapist to watch her granddaughter while she was like, she had to attend it, so while she was there. And I already had my mind set on going to New York and living with my biological brother. And I met my parents by the cows because it was at Old Mickey's farm, and that's and it was kind of like they just talked to me and asked me like how my day was and how old I was and stuff like that. And after that, I went during the lunch. I went and sat there and talked to them, and it kind of just clicked. Like I just felt so comfortable with them and things like that. So I told my caseworker about them and that I was interested in them and things like that. And that's pretty much how that went. And my caseworker told me, yeah, I was very interested in you too, and this and that. So we went on our first, like, they call it like a date thing, and then we went bowling and stuff. And that's where we like talked and stuff and just got to hang out. And I guess I just really got to know them and things like that. And that's kind of where I knew they were my parents, and this is where I wanted to be.
Thank you so much, Diamond. I appreciate it. And then I guess I'm going to ask one for Keontae. The question is that you've mentioned a couple of times about how your family showed you love, how the Crenshaws showed you love, and it was just asked for a little more detail about that. Like, what did that look like for you? And maybe that looked different when you first moved into their home, if you can, think back of that time versus what that looks like now. If you can provide, maybe more specifics about that.
Well, yeah, like I said, when I first came to Crenshaw, it was for respite. So I was only here for about only 3 days. And during that 3 days, I enjoyed, a lot of most of it is because I had actual, brothers that I can kind of relate to, and I was always around my sisters everywhere. I was always around girls everywhere. I didn't really have no boys or no brothers to hang out with like that at the time. So when I came with the Crenshaw, all that just, happened, and I have like 9 brothers now, and it's just been amazing to experience what boys do in the world and how boys act, and, react to everything, and a lot of times, me and my family, the Crenshaws, we always went traveling. So when I first got here, that's all we did was travel, travel, travel. And right now, we're traveling. We go meet our parents, our family. Every year, we go do a family trip. Most of the time, and some days, me and my mom or the kids or the family might go travel to Indianapolis or somewhere an hour away and do some things together. We're still doing stuff a lot together, but a lot of it's changed since my dad passed. So when my dad passed, we kind of limited it down because that was another key factor, a key part into our family. So when he passed, we kind of laid off a lot of things that we would normally do with him. So we kind of try. We're still trying to figure out how to travel more and get that. But right now we're just doing the family thing every year. And so now, when I was younger, that's when I was younger. But now it's like now I got my own kind of responsibilities, because I'm 19 now. I got a job and I got school, so it's kind of playing that. But I still have time for family, and we still get time. We still have time to do stuff with each other. It's just harder now because I'm getting older and trying to do my own thing.
Thank you so much, Keontae. That's perfect. One came in for you, Stacy, as well. We have about 4 more minutes. How did you, as a parent, or as parents, separate out negative behavior appropriate, considering the trauma from their past versus negative behavior that may require correction?
Yeah, that was actually a very hard thing when we first got Kylie, because we just associated everything with trauma and everything with hurt or neglect. And so up front, I think that was a big learning curve for us that, you know what, she can't leave her TV on for the entire night, and it's not because she was traumatized, it was because she just needs to turn it off. So, you know, there were other things that she was scared of in the dark. You know, that those were other issues, but, you know, because she would do certain things, and I think that she was old enough and she knew that she could manipulate that situation, that we had to learn real quick about what those were. And we developed a kind of like a tag team thing. Like, I would ask her a question about how she was feeling about, you know, let's say turning the TV off at night. Was she scared of the dark? Did she feel like she needed a stuffed animal? Did she want a nightlight on? And then, you know, so I would be like good cop. My husband would come in and be like, you need to turn the TV off. And so he'd come in and play bad cop. Then the next night, let's say if it was something different, you know, she didn't want to do her homework because she felt like she was stupid, or, you know, her teacher hated her guts. You know, he would come in and say, like, you know, what did he say to you? And, you know, how did you feel about that? And then I would come in and be like, you know what, you need to do your math homework. I'm going to do it right now. So when we would do that, when she would talk to us about her feelings and we could see that it stemmed from something else, then we would stop and we would talk about that. If she just didn't want to do her math homework, then we would sit down and have to do her math homework. So it was a learning process of feeling her out and seeing what was really trauma-based and what was, you know, maybe her just being a little bit bratty.
Thanks, Stacy. That's helpful. One question that came out was, you know, did you have other children that your daughters had to integrate with? And I'm pretty sure that's a no, correct?
We did not have other children in our home. I have a very close relationship with my niece, who was over at my house for 3 or 4 days a week. So that was a significant relationship that was impacted when we adopted our first daughter. So it was a huge learning curve with that too. And then this time, we had Kylie in the house and we're bringing Angie in. So it also has been something, you know, how do you deal with each child's emotions about the transition that's going on, and how does that affect them? And even, again, right now with my niece, and my niece said, now you have a second daughter, there's really no place for me. And it was the same words that she said when we got Kylie, our first daughter. So reassuring everybody that, you know, like Kylie, you're still my daughter. I love you very much. Yes, there are things that are going to be hard and there's going to be a transition, but we can talk about that and work through it, and which is what we've done with all 3 of the girls, including my niece. As I said, she's at my house quite often.
Great, thank you. And then just in the last, it just hit 2 o'clock. I think this is a good question to ask Diamond and Keontae. How long would you say it took you to settle into your home, like after being adopted? You know, in just a range. Diamond, what about for you?
I think the first year, the first year, honestly, I feel like for me to get completely comfortable, for me to be like, these are my parents, like this is my mom and my dad, it took me about a year.
Thank you. Thanks for being honest about that. What about for you, Keontae? How long would you say it took you?
Well, before I was adopted, I was with them for about a year or 2 already.
Okay.
So when I got adopted, I just knew, like, it was that click, and, like, I was really there, and it's time to, you know, settle in, you know, do what they tell me, because these are my parents for now, and, you know, do whatever they say, and try to have fun while I'm doing it, and try to be respectful.
Thanks so much, Keontae and Diamond and Stacy. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share with us. I feel like we covered a lot in a short amount of time, so thank you. Unfortunately, that concludes the time. 60 minutes always goes by really fast. If you have follow-up questions for either myself regarding Child Welfare Information Gateway or Adopt U.S. Kids, please feel free to contact us at the emails listed on the screen, so info@childwelfare.gov or info@adoptuskids.org. Again, I hope you found this webinar useful and inspiring. Please keep an eye out for an email after the webinar asking for your feedback. We would really appreciate your input. So with that, I will conclude this year's webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.